Welcome to the Rapid Cassandra e-learning course, Section 4, Deploying to Production. In this section, we'll expand the single node cluster done in the last section to a multi-node production cluster. The first thing to consider when migrating a development cluster to a production one is replication strategy. We're going to choose the appropriate replication strategy for CassandraTrader. Then we'll actually expand the cluster with the planned settings, as well as migrate the data to the cluster. And we'll modify CassandraTrader source code to connect to the cluster. Cassandra provides two replication strategies for different needs. Simple strategy is suitable for a cluster in one and only one data center, so it's not really expandable. Another more common choice is network topology strategy, which is highly recommended for any future expansion to a multi-data center cluster. Obviously, we choose it for CassandraTrader. We'll migrate to a bare minimum 2-node cluster as illustrated in the design diagram here. The cluster name will remain test cluster, and both nodes will be in the same rack, rack 1, in the same data center, NY1. We'll need to modify two Cassandra configuration files to make it real. First, cassandra.yaml. ubtc01 is the seed node. Listen address is set to empty, and RPC address 0.0.0.0, and endpoint snitch is gossiping property file snitch. We also changed the name of the data center and the rack to NY1 and Rack1 respectively in Cassandra rackdc.properties file. As we've stored historical prices of some stocks in the single node cluster and don't want to download them once again, we'll follow the steps shown here to migrate the data. All right, here we go. First, switch to the Java development environment, stop Cassandra. Make a temp folder in home directory. Copy all SS tables of Packt CDMA keyspace to a temporary location just created. Start Cassandra again. Assuming we know how to install a new Cassandra node and configure the network, we'll skip the steps in this video. Then apply the changes in the configuration files to both nodes. Start the seed node first, and then the other node. We'll then use CQLSH to create keyspace Packt CDMA with new replication strategy setting and create table quote. Switch to the Java development environment. Finally, we load the backup SS tables back to the cluster using SS Table Loader. Open CQLSH and select all historical prices from quote to validate the migration. All historical prices survived. We then proceed to modify the CassandraTrader source code to connect to this cluster. First, we add a new method connectCluster in Cassandra Manager class to connect to multiple nodes. Then, we change the constructor of CassandraTrader DAO class to connect-to-call connectCluster method instead. Finally, go back to CassandraTrader. We change to call the cluster version of CassandraTrader DAO class constructor. Set the symbol to a new one, say ORCL. Run again. All right, it finished successfully. Let's validate the result in CQLSH. Select all historical prices of ORCL. Perfect. Everything works like a charm. We now know the steps of scaling out a single node cluster to a production one and choose the right replication strategy. Moreover, we learned how to migrate existing data to the production cluster. We also modified CassandraTrader to work with the production cluster. Next, we'll look into how to configure and test a resilient cluster, which is very important in a production system.